I tell you what's next right now.
Oh, yeah.
Is a high-level conversation.
We've been waiting for this.
We've been waiting. Friends of the podcast, Jack and Conrad, welcome back to the show. And it's been a while, right?
It's been a while. Good seeing you guys.
It's great to see you guys.
Hey, we came to party.
Yes. Well, that's why we invited you. We knew you'd bring the party, as always, right?
I was telling Jack, I can't believe we got invited back.
I know.
Most people wonder how they make it back on.
I know.
Right?
I know.
wonder
We've heard that
sometimes.
many times. Like, please not those guys. No, actually, everybody's been saying, they're like, when is this going to happen again? Because we had some great discussions.
Yep.
We were discussing at that time some of the same things we're going to maybe circle back with a new kind of renewed focus. And I think I want to start by saying that, we were just in Will Martin's talk just a few minutes ago. And he was, we were, and I will say, I have no problem saying this. We were kind of like, so we didn't really get a lot of answers. And I don't mean that was anything that had to do with Dr. Martin. It was, everybody wants to know what the future holds, right? And as Dr. Martin said, if you want to make a fool of yourself, make predictions.
Right.
But he did bring in some really great discussion about where are we going. So we'll get to that. Why don't you guys, for those of us who don't know who you guys are, introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about who you are, what you do, where you're located, kind of some of your interests from the lab perspective.
Yeah, I'll let you shoot.
I'm Conrad, owner of Absolute Dental Lab in we like to call it the Chapel Hill area of North Carolina. It sounds more mystique.
Yeah, it is. Very mystique.
We have branches all across the southeast, and my counterpart here, Jack Marrano, runs our Signature division.
Yeah, and we have Signature. I founded the Absolute Art team as the Advanced Restorative team. And we just presented right now. We presented for 3 hours, which is 2.5 hours too long. But a lot of what my background is prosthodontics, full arch, full mouth rehabilitations, materials. I love materials geek. So that's kind of what I do.
Yeah.
There's so much of the talk surrounding around this team approach to dentistry, especially here at the Academy of Osseointegration. You guys are laboratory owners, technicians, and material scientists, really. And I think that the names keep coming up when you keep hearing and seeing the names. And
you guys are not just doing lab work.
Yes.
You guys are testing.
You're changing dentistry, honestly.
Working with residency programs, working with key opinion leaders, companies to figure out what's next, and what's best. And I think that the low-hanging fruit discussion that everybody, we did just dive into it, is everybody wants to know what's next, or are we ready for what's next with, I think, materials science. And I know you talk about this all the time. And so we've had several people who have said, okay, we need to make sure we ask these guys about full arch, implant restorative materials. And when Will Martin had the key opinion leaders kind of give their feedback, we were sort of ready for everyone to give one answer that was super progressive, but we heard a lot of the same things. Well, right now it's zirconia, but printed ceramics are coming. Printed resins are coming. High performance polymers are around. They're obviously, what does the future look like?
I'll kick it off for you, okay? Yeah. When we last spoke, we were super excited about milling high glass polymers. I don't know if you remember, we were talking about the new generation, and maybe we don't need support. We can just cut a straight hybrid. And we've had our failures, unfortunately.
This is what I wanted to hear about.
Bleeding edge again.
We're here for you. It's all right.
But I think what we've learned, and then we started looking at printing these materials, Bago Varseo. We started morphing away because it's much less labor intensive. And we had some more failures, and I'm talking about full arch application. I think all these materials are pretty well tried and trusted for smaller cases, but we're looking for that full arch solution that we can do something affordable. And I'll let Jack touch on this a little bit more, but we started working with our digital denture division, and we were making fun of each other this morning. I always tell him, oh, you're going to talk on dentures? You don't know anything about dentures. And he's like, oh, you're going to talk on dentures? You don't know anything about dentures. But we're so excited about it because of the technology surrounding dentures. You asked me 2 years ago what would replace zirconia, and I was cautious not to say a printed polymer because I didn't think it would hold up. And we started working with the Flexera Smile material, and now I'm thinking it might actually be a lower glass polymer.
Ooh,
Got exceptional. If you want to tell them about the Lars Boma case.
So we'll start off. I wanted to start off with this. Because of the failures we experienced. I tell everybody, my great success has everything to do with my miserable failures, both professionally and personally. I don't stray away from them. I look forward to them. And early on, with those high glass content millable materials, we had catastrophic failure, and that's the name of the game. Yep. The onus is on us and clinicians and meetings like the AO now, because material development is so rapid. That we have to properly vet these materials before they get back to the patients. Make sure that the research studies are done and completed, not just by the manufacturer, but independently as well. If we're looking at materials now, zirconia is still king as far as what we got out there. It's not a perfect material, but right now it's the best restorative material. That being said, looking forward into solutions that we have coming, it is very, very exciting. And it's all based just on material development. It's material development. So we've always wanted to print, but we didn't have the materials. Then, we've seen a great material with Lucitone. That's starting to come forward. Now with Flexera. And so now we're really seeing a progression in the materials. With Flexera, there's a UAB study by Dr. Nate Larson, and that's just absolutely phenomenal. Between the wear rate, between the strength, they put it in the Instron machine. His study exactly replicates what we've seen previously with high glass content printed and milled materials, which they're exceptionally brittle. While they have great wear resistance, when they break in pieces. Now with Flexera, it does not exhibit those same qualities. So now we're moving forward in the right direction. We have a case with Dr. Lars Boma, and what he does is he uses a technique that he kind of coined or termed the phrase biomilling or biotyping. What he'll do is I'll make a provisional for him. He'll have the patient wear it for 5 to 6 months. He wants them to wear in their patterns of occlusion and function. When he's done with that and he's satisfied, he'll send it back to me, and I'll make a copy STL file of it and go ahead and mill that out in zirconia.
At the current wear pattern?
At the current wear pattern. Okay. So this last case that we did it with Flexera. The case was in the mouth for 5 months. When he seen the patient back on recall, I mean, there was wear, which he wants to see, but it wasn't excessive. It was very, very minor. And the interesting part about it was it looked like it was brand new. What I find most exciting, it didn't break, didn't chip. He said he actually looked at his assistant and said, "What are we doing today?"
Just to find out.
And so when he took it out of the mouth, I think the fascinating part about it, and Flexera has a glass content, but I think they've mastered the amount of glass. The intaglio surface was spotless. Spotless. And so now we got something we can get really excited for. Now, here's the question. It's very early on. What happens if we make one of those restorations unsupported, and then go ahead and how long will it last? Will it last a year, 2 years, 5 years? And then how long is long enough? Right. So if I can get a patient to wear it for 5 years, is that a bad thing if it fails at 5?
And that's what Martin brought up. He said, there's some approach of, okay, let's make the most indestructible material, but then there's a whole other idea of let's make a material that is inexpensive enough, potentially, that it can be, maybe not disposable is not the word,
right?
But it could be, intermediate term, and we could just print another one.
Yep, exactly.
Why have we been driven so hard in dentistry as prosthetic guys to just build something that lasts eternity?
Right.
Like, it just seems
that's
like
just
that's
the way
ingrained.
our minds work, though.
And yet we're coming back to this idea, like, I don't ever tell a denture patient since 2000, when I was trained in dentures, that their denture is going to last forever. I say for guys, you're going to get 5. For women, you may get 7. And you may get less than that. But we're going to have to redo or revise the prosthetic, remake it. What's going on?
And I think we went off the deep end on that as far as, well, it should last till you die, and you're 45 today.
It's totally the wrong approach.
And I think looking for something a little bit more economical, especially in the full arch space, because we get it all the time. A material like this, and it's very early, but what we've seen with this Lars Boma has been in the mouth so long, it looked the same as it did the day we delivered it. So maybe that 2-3 year device, keep the models. Anything goes wrong, we make you a new one. You flip them out.
Right,
give
like
it
an
back to
Essex
the patient.
retainer, right? I mean, we need to redo those things.
But that's also, I think the lab now, and this is where I want to hear your approach to this, because as dentists, I think we have liked to be able to say to a patient, "Oh, this will last you forever," but labs have a different pressure. The pressure of, if something breaks, whose fault is it?
Right.
Whose problem is it?
It's our fault.
And it's always the lab. Everyone knows it's
We're
always
not
the
there,
lab's
so
fault,
blame
right?
us.
We know this. So
That's why we charge extra. So you can blame us.
Exactly. So the question, I think, becomes is changing a mindset there. It's changing a mindset of saying, we haven't, hopefully this lasts you for 25 years, but if it lasts you for 5, that's kind of an expectation. And it changes, but that's getting over the hump with the dentist, I would think.
Yeah.
I will say where new technologies and materials are really helping is recovering.
Right.
Patient lose their denture now. We give you a new one in 24 hours.
Yes.
Exact same copy. It's amazing. Patient is a tough patient to satisfy with the original denture. We call it the Forever Smile. It's archived. Patient comes back. You print yourself a try-in, refresh the intaglio, and we send you a new denture.
Yep.
So it's an amazing place for us to be. I think we're finally seeing that materials are there. We're actually testing printable zirconia.
Yeah.
I think we're the
Printable
first
zirconia
lab.
is here. We have it in the lab.
It's we got to be careful. It's a little clunky.
Yeah, that's what we want to know.
It's definitely
You can only say so much.
Let's say Gen 1.
Yeah. So
That's a very nice way of saying it.
So one of the things we had to do was wrap the printer in blue plastic to stop the external light from. So there's a lot of things.
Okay.
But let me tell you what really surprised us was the accuracy and the quality of the print.
Yeah.
Exceptional. The color kind of resembles its table at this stage, but it's coming.
Yeah.
And I think printable zirconia will be just in time to be replaced by something else.
Well, so I want to know, though, why, Jack, you're the only person that said in Will Martin's lecture that you think that printable ceramics, polymers are the future. No one else in those key opinion.
I think Ludlow, maybe.
Maybe Ludlow. Ludlow's jaded too because he's super pumped over the last couple months, right?
That's true.
So he's jaded a little bit because he's excited about the possibilities of printing denture bases and those type of things.
We still had several people who said zirconia may become the universal material, or that it's kind of here to stay.
Of course, it was an open-ended question, but why are you so hot on this?
100%. It's going to be printed. If you look at milling technology, let's take dentistry out of it. Let's look at manufacturing.
There we go.
Milling technology is subtractive. It's subtractive. It's not additive. It's very inefficient. It's very expensive. In a lot of ways, it offers some inaccuracies during the process versus printing technology as an additive. Right? It's much more scalable, okay? We have an issue in the laboratory business right now where we're looking at with lesser and lesser technicians being available. So printing technology, I would say far more accurate, far more scalable, far more cost-effective, and as the material development progresses, that's where it's going to be, not subtractive technology. And then you can take dentistry right out of the word and just look at manufacturing in the world today. And the whole movement is going towards printing, and so will we. We're just getting the materials.
And I think the question, I'll be really careful how I state this, but if you think about chairside milling units, why did they not replace technicians like everybody initially thought? And they've made a very small impact on the industry, and it's because it's slow and it's not always as accurate. And, there's a lot of different things. What we're not seeing that with printing. I spoke at an event a while back with a pretty high esteemed speaker, and he's a milling guy, milling dentures, and we kind of got a little sideways with this, and he said, I think milling is more accurate than printing dentures. And with all due respect, it's not, because you can't mill into an undercut. You can't mill into those fine. And what we've seen with now the new Flexero material and obviously the Lucitone, printing is the future. I think the one thing we agree on, 5 years from now, the material of choice will be a printable material.
Okay, 5 years. There's a prediction.
So that's where we wanted to kind of go, and I want to totally change the conversation.
I know this is
because I know this is something we wanted to have you guys weigh in on, but we've been hearing just time after time after time in the last couple of days about a whole different thought process on where we're going with creating the virtual patient, okay, and where the lab falls with this. And indulge me just a second, because there's a little bit of like verbal vomiting here we have to do to kind of get to this point, to kind of recap. So we talk about how the challenge is treatment planning, right? It's not so much the execution of treatment. Now, obviously, we have to have the right training as a dentist, as a clinician, to execute the treatment. But the treatment planning, you guys spend a lot of time, frankly, treatment planning cases for you, which is ridiculous. Okay, let's just say that, right? You do it because you know what you're doing, and that's wonderful, and you've taken a lot of training. But there's a lot of need for treatment planning, and a lot of maybe misunderstanding with treatment planning for a lot of our dentists that are maybe just started, maybe just don't have the training. So Christian Coachman, for instance, talks about, the creation of a virtual patient. Could we outsource treatment planning? Are labs going to be getting more into the world of saying, do we need treatment planners? Do we need to employ people to actually treatment plan these cases, because we don't have to have the analog anymore?
Employ dentists, really.
Right. Are we going to need this? Because could you have people in a completely different country that could send you everything virtually and digitally, and you could treatment plan? We know that labs struggle with how far do they reach into the treatment planning world for their clinicians. And where do you see the future of this going as we create the virtual patient? There's more pressure on the lab, I think. Tell me if I'm wrong on that. Where do you think we're going with that?
Right. Well, I mean, for us, it's a very integral part of what we do. I mean, it's not so much about the restoration, but the solution, or the working with the clinician and that relationship. So yeah, no, absolutely. We'd be a big part of the virtual patient, I think.
And I've seen the same drive. Everybody's trying to get the perfect, complete digital solution.
Yes.
Who owns the chair, owns the market, kind of thing. Personally, I think the company that engages the labs keeps the labs engaged. I think we've seen over the last 10 years, you can't cut the lab out.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody's tried it. It just doesn't work, because the labs own the relationships. The labs are ultimately the ones, because you can outsource denture design. It's not going to look like an absolute denture. I can absolutely guarantee you that. And I think that's going to make the world smaller, because now we'll be more chair-side. Look at Dandy Dental. I got to give Dandy Dental credit. Yep. They figured out how to build a huge platform all on service. What we do is still ultimately a service industry. We're serving our customers, and we've got to be a solution to them.
Right.
So I see that becoming a more integral part. I'm struggling to figure out what that would look like. What does the future look like?
Like you said, what parts the clinician, technician, team, patient is changing right now before our eyes, as far as it's very a blending of the lines, not as far as me on the clinical side, but as far as the clinician, and it's due to the technology, the ability of data transfer, things like that, I would say today, we're working closer together and better together than we ever have. And like you said, what exactly will that look like with that digital patient? And who's responsible for what part? Not exactly sure yet, but it's going to be. It's definitely going to be both groups that.
But you're not just charging for a restoration.
Yeah, you're
charging for really what you know.
Right.
But that's more difficult to quantify.
Yep.
And I feel like labs have and dentists too. We charge for procedures. We don't charge if we don't do something. Yeah. Whereas, say, attorneys, they charge for their time.
I mean,
it's what you know. I mean, how do we figure this out? Because it seems like it's more now what you know is what you're really bringing to the table. Because anybody can mill, anybody can print, quote unquote. Now, it may not be the same quality, but they can buy the equipment.
And I think the huge consolidation, Jack, that we're seeing. I mean, we're seeing consolidation everywhere. DSOs, you've seen labs consolidate. So I think you're going to always have, it's going to drive to less labs. We're seeing a huge drought. There's no hands. I mean, there's just no hands in our industry. We're training 8 out of 10 technicians off the street right now, which is not always a bad thing.
There's good and bad about that.
But I do think AI is the ultimate link that will change.
AI is going to play a huge role in it, a huge role. And we have things right now where we have services where, even for, let's say, dentures, we have clinicians that will design and send the design files, we'll assemble. And then we have others that they want us to design, send them back. You have a printer and you do assemble. So even our fee schedule, our pricing structure is changing. And then with the implementation of more AI, the AI that we see right now that exists has been incredibly beneficial. And that'll probably be a large part of that fully digital patient.
Because it kind of can make up, I think about what Align has done, for instance, with, you have an AI option to do your ClinCheck setup now, and there's a certain price point for that. Now, we could argue about how good that setup is compared to a technician doing it. Could there be a price point for, this is your AI veneer mock-up, and here's your Jack Marrano AI setup, and there's two different, I mean, is that where we're headed, do you feel like?
I think what it would do is it's going to take the arduous tasks out of the way. Everything we've seen with technology is, we used to do substructure support. Half the day we would just sit and wax substructure, and everybody had a different opinion on substructure support. Thank goodness we don't do layered ceramics anymore. But everything we've seen now is we're reserving the hands for the artistry. And I think that's probably where I've always said this kind of tongue-in-cheek, but I think it's true. The quickest rise and fall of any part of our industry technically is going to be our designers, our planners, the guys who knows 3Shape, because they're being replaced by AI. And my business partner Drew, he said, "Dade, but we can't help these people." I said, "Well, we either help them or we become one of the obsolete ones." You can't fight technology. You have to be a part of it. And I think if you're a part of it, we can make it better. But I do believe AI, any chairside solution, I think will be successful if it can. It needs to stop trying to make a clinician a technician.
There we go.
Yes, that's a great way of putting it.
That's why your assistants didn't go to assistant school to become technicians.
Well, there's always going to be the people that want to tinker and want to play with the things.
Yes.
And I think that there for a while, right, just like with CEREC and, CEREC 2 that I was even trained on, I mean, it's unreal what you were, able to achieve when that came out. But we all thought the lab will be obsolete in 20 years, and here we are 20 years later, and the lab is not obsolete.
Right. And I think it's actually come full circle. I think the lab is more important than it used to be.
But it's becoming more about the thinking and the treatment planning. I mean, yes, there is the technical and the hands at the end, too. So there's sort of two sides to it, right? It's the artistry, but it's a lot of the thinking that is having to happen at the beginning, because if AI can replace a lot of the repetitive tasks, as you say, the mundane, then it becomes
Here's the thing.
We think through these cases.
Obviously, Conrad and Jack, you have the respect of many amazing clinicians because you're vetted, you're in the world of research and collaboration. But what is the barrier with this idea of the doctor and lab technician, right? There seems like, do I really want to listen to my lab guy? Tell me how to do this. Right? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I can't agree more. That's the one thing that always boggles me is it's your job to know. It's my job to know. It's his job to know. The day of a lab technician that does single posterior crowns are coming to an end rapidly. I got into a little tussle on Facebook with a guy the other day, and I said, "No, you can't do this." And he answered just old school technician, blah, blah, blah. I wrote back, I said, maybe next time you'll do a little research, because we have to look at our presentations now. Yeah. We're quoting Dr. Lawson, we're quoting this, we're showing scientific proof, because if you don't know what you have. The products are changing so rapidly. It is my job to know, I can't know, but I can guess that this would be a good choice. Look at just 6 months, 8 months ago when we spoke, or just before COVID. I would have sold you high glass, millable pucks all day long. And we don't touch them anymore. So it changes rapidly, but it's a great place to be.
Well, lab technicians are now going to organizations like the Academy of Osseointegration, and our lab technician attends doctors' courses, and you're here at doctors' courses.
And how do you, on the converse, so you have a new clinician come in, right? So this is maybe the classic. The new clinician comes in who doesn't have treatment planning knowledge, right? So how are you working these clinicians?
Yeah,
So get to a point where you can have discussions, because
Yeah.
when they come out of, say, dental school, prosthodontics is different.
Right.
But when they say come out of dental school and they want to do these sexy, cool cases,
Right.
like we all want to do
They
sexy,
see it on
cool cases,
Instagram
they're like,
and
I
they
saw
call,
it.
hey,
It's easy.
Absolute
Instagram.
Dental's doing it.
Right.
Instagram.
I heard
Signature
if I call
line.
Conrad, he can hook me up. How do you work
Just let
them
him do
from,
my case.
Yeah.
Get them,
Just-
because I don't know if you've seen the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? But it's this curve where, at the beginning you think you know everything and you really know nothing.
Right.
And as you get experience, you realize you know nothing at all. And then
Right.
finally you realize you never really knew as you get more experience, but you're more confident. How do you work someone from thinking they know to knowing that they don't know to realizing that maybe you guys can work together?
Yeah, and I just got asked the same question. You mentioned the Instagram thing. It's kind of funny. So Instagram, there's lots of studies how it's bad for teenage girls' health. It's actually bad for clinicians' health as well.
100%.
But
That
if
might
you
go on Twitter
yeah,
later.
yeah. So, but
That
with-
might go
but
on Twitter, not
right.
Instagram
Yeah.
later. Right.
Somebody just asked me, how do you speak to clinicians? And I had to think about it. And I told them an answer. I'm like, yeah, well, I just talked to them and, they just obviously listen. I don't know. And I went back and thought about the question and then emailed the doctor back and said, I know how. So for me, a lot of it is just my personality, I think. I listen.
I'll give you a little credit.
Yeah.
I think why our team has been successful is because we would draw the battle lines and say, this is what we will and this is what we won't. And I think when Jack does a case planning, or Dries or anybody like that, I mean, we don't always know, but I think we have a pretty good idea. And like you talked about prototyping this morning.
Yeah.
Jack will not go to final if the prototype is not approved. In the mouth. Not move the midline, let's go to final. Let's redo that.
Right.
So I think LabTech's over the years has maybe felt maybe a little secondary to the clinical world.
That's totally true. They feel secondary.
And I don't
But
think
at the same
you
time,
can.
I don't know that the quality of dentistry that we're seeing out there is getting better. I hate to say that. You guys can't say that as
Right.
easily as what we maybe can.
It's true.
But we've been in the model room of labs.
According to the
and you
American
look
Dental
at-
Association,
it's like
it is getting worse.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
wasteland in there. You're like, how in the world are you guys even doing this? It seems like that's becoming more common. So at the same time, there's more of this divide. It seems crazy to me. And yet we think we can look at Instagram and go, oh, well, we'll pull this off easily.
It's
So
just-
you really have to, it's kid gloves, I would think. You really have
Yeah.
to be careful to have those discussions. But you guys have figured it out.
And I think, Jack, you would agree, when we started the lab in 2000, it's a different type of message. It's more, don't upset anybody because we can't afford
Right.
it. And I think we're very respectful. I mean, that's...
I think it's just how you have that conversation. It's having respect for the individual or the clinician on the other end of the phone. It's your voice. It's your tone. It's everything about your being that it's a respect amongst each other that really helps with it. That's what I was asked, those difficult conversations. I talked about, I received a case where it was a PVS impression. It was for a single unit to fixture level, no transfer, closed tray, open tray, none of that. It was PVS shot right into the fixture and then the impression pulled. And that's when the question got asked, how do you have that conversation? And I think it's I don't go into anything with any type of ego or bias. It's how I approach the clinician with respect, and they mutually, then they give that back. I treat people how they would like to be treated.
This is a conversation for the ages because it's about humbleness and really, I don't know everything. I know that my laboratory technician has always made me a better technician in the clinic. And what I know is I can't do everything. You guys are doing this every single day, and when I would recommend that you listen to what you just said there is come to the table on our side, on the doctor's side, listening, first, and then suggesting and making a collaboration, right? We can do that even better today because it's all virtual. We can look at the designs. I mean, for goodness sakes, I get movies all the time, per se, you want to call it that, of my abutment designs. And it's so easy for us to collaborate and make things even better.
During COVID, we helped through some guided surgeries with the cell phone duct tape to the overhead light.
That's right.
It's just thinking outside the box all of a sudden.
Yes. Well,
but I do think, technicians, last
no,
point.
you're good.
We need to understand what our clinicians are dealing with. I think that's what's.
Yep.
I was Jack as well. We grew up chairside, so I had a lady call one day and she canceled a full rehab appointment, and she looked at me. She goes, "What's the big deal? I just asked for one more day." I said, "No, you just canceled 6 hours of that schedule." And she never understood that. It's just, what's the big deal? It's just one day. No, it's a whole schedule.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
So I think, and that's where our industry is going. More education. We love coming to these things because we learn just as much as we can teach. And I think that's where
And
it
I
should
think
go.
that says a lot. The fact that not only are you guys here obviously speaking, because you're on the other side of that of, hey, we've gained knowledge, we know a couple of things, we figured some things out. You're contributing back to the community, but also you're here to learn. And I think that if both sides of that equation are there for the same reason, we're able to work together well. And I think so that's why we're here. I mean, frankly, we're here at this meeting and engaging with these types of folks because we know, especially as GPs, that there's a huge need to engage in education and collaboration because we know that, like you say, there's fewer of you folks around. So
where can people find you right now? I mean, you guys are doing a lot of lecturing and things like that.
Yeah, talk about how people can connect and get involved with you guys.
Yeah, our social media, we do a ton of social media. Anything from Facebook to, it's funny, Instagram.
Oh, no.
Yeah. We just do a YouTube.
I still don't understand most of the things we do.
Yeah.
But you do them.
Somebody asked me
apparently it
right
works.
now after the lecture, he's like, "What's your Instagram?" I'm like, "I don't have one." But we have an Absolute Dental one. It's Absolute Dental 25. You could always find us on social media. And there, we have ADS talks where a lot of what we'll do is the new techniques, the new materials. We'll do short 2-3 minute videos, try to pack as much information as we can to try to keep everybody up to speed of what we're seeing from the laboratory side.
Yeah.
And we still center everything around our website, which is absolutedentallab.com.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you have pictures up of the Flexera cases?
Yeah.
You're on your social media.
On the social media.
Check out.
And that's right. The website is a great spot, and all of the social media stems based right off the website.
Well, I think for a high-level conversation surrounding Flexera, right? That's the product name. We need to have you guys back on the show.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Dive into that.
And if you're looking for some great content that really still lives, it's really good regardless of the prediction. We went through a series of podcasts where we go over working with the edentulous patient and going through some of those step-by-step appointments and how you can communicate with your lab. You just need to go back in that content on the Dental Guys podcast and check out Jack and Conrad as they come on the show and maybe look for future shows with them talking about future products that really will enhance our care for the future and maybe not break, after.
That's right.
Exactly.
Where you can still come back the next show and say, yeah, we're still with you on that.
We're still with you on that.
Yeah, we're all searching for that.
I don't
right?
think anything we said on the last podcast is still true, is it?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, that's technology, though, right? That's just how it goes
That's the
these
speed
days.
we're moving at
That's
right now. Yeah.
And we love that because, somebody's got to be out there, forging ahead on that. That's how we get better. So thank you guys for being together.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you guys
Great
so
to hang
much.
out.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Always
it.
a pleasure.
All right,
Thank
yeah.
you.